Hello, my name is Abigail Burkett, and I will be doing my presentation over trophy and big game hunting. One of the things when I first started learning about trophy hunting or big game hunting and big game hunting ranches, I remember it was a few years ago. I think it was my first year of college, maybe. Take in mind that I did live in West Texas, so hunting was very, very popular. It was, a sport that many people did. So it hits home for a lot of different points and made me realize a lot of different things about, this type of sport or activity. When I remember walking into this guy's house, and he had a room full, like, it was very close to this picture, just, heads of tons of animals, different types of animals, like, not just deer, but tons of different animals that I hadn't seen, don't really know what the names of them are, and then I remember walking down, and then in the corner, there was a huge, giraffe, it was part of its neck and its head. And it was huge, it was in the corner, and it went up, all the way to the ceiling, and I remember just, almost bawling when I saw that. I, didn't know what to do, and he was the guy, that was his house, he was oh yeah, we go and hunt, we do a lot of exotic hunting, and I just, my mind was blown, pretty much. I didn't really know what to say at that point to him. I really wanted to just get out of that room and leave. That was the first time that I didn't really know much about it, but the first time I recognized, exotic hunting / big game hunting. Stop, Buffy. So from that's when I started, kind of researching about it, thinking about it, what I thought about it, just really learning about the topic. In this side it says needless hunting. We are not hunting for survival anymore, then why are we doing it? I recently watched not recently, but a while back, I watched a video of Joe Rogan's podcast. I don't know if y'all know him, but he talks about tons of different topics, ideas, beliefs, with tons of different people that are guests on his show, on his podcast. I had listened to one about trophy hunting, and he was talking about this guy, or he was talking with this guy, that, they were talking about, pros and cons. So that really got me thinking, so, what are the pros? What are people arguing are the pros of trophy hunting and, big game hunting? And I was thinking about it, and I was this really is needless hunting. We are not back in 1800s or before that to where there are no grocery stores that we can just go buy all our meat from, all our, the stuff that we need to survive, milk, water, eggs, that type of thing, bread, and then chicken, beef, all that stuff. We can't, back then you couldn't just go to the store all the time and they would just give you exactly what you need. People actually had to go out and survive. They had to hunt. The men of the group would go out and hunt animals and bring back for their families to eat. They would have it for the next, that deer or elk or whatever or bear would provide clothing, blankets, stuff for their houses, but it would also provide food for the next month at least, depending on how big that family is that you're feeding. So it was very, very important and a very, very, necessity at that time. It was necessary. It was a need. Hunting was a need back then. This type of hunting, it's needless, as it shows right here. Animals have few rights, but they do have the right to be here. And that was a quote from Anthony Douglas. He's a wildlife researcher. He has a bunch of articles in National Geographic as well. The thing about it is, when I started really looking into it for this specific speech, My title right here says what we do know or what we don't. And that's basically the whole argument on this topic. There's plenty of, people that go around and research this. But the thing is, these, different ranches or different like wildlife conservation areas or safaris that they take you on to go to these hunts, they are not, they don't have researchers and scientists going in there and mapping out data and recording it and writing it down to see if it's really what the, if it's necessary, if this, will benefit both animals and humans. A quote from Melanie Flynn, 2019, senior lecturer in criminology at the University of Huddersfield. She says this is needless killing. She talks about how researchers would have to go out, like I said, and constantly regulate and research and write down statistics and numbers to see if, this, relationship between, hunters and animals, for it to even work at all. So that's the thing. There is not a lot of research and statistics or anything. Trophy hunting is unregulated, unchallenged. There is no protection for these animals. The hunter's argument is what I like to call it. A lot of people, they talk about, oh, but what about, what about those places that, they have to do it because of population, like overpopulation. Like, yeah, that's fine. There's places in Montana that have a ton of goats. They have a goat problem. So the wildlife preserve will have people go out there, hunters go out there and shoot goats because there's just overpopulation in these towns. But that's specific situations. The same as their other argument to help all the money that they put into trophy hunting. It costs thousands and thousands of dollars depending on what animals you kill, where you go. So it can be very, very pricey. But the thing is, a lot of hunters also argue that this money that they're paying is going straight into the wildlife conservation. It's going straight back into these like little towns and villages and cities that are in different parts of Africa and things like that. And it's going straight into those businesses and to the people of those towns and villages and cities. And this, like I said, a lot of this has not been thoroughly researched. There has no been hard proven solid facts that this is happening. There could be because of corrupt government of those countries. They could be, siphoning it for themselves, for the government. It could not actually reach any of the people or any of those businesses to help like wildlife conservation and help these like little villages thrive and cities thrive. So there's that argument. There's another argument that, hunters and trophy hunters, game ranchers have that, we're doing this to actually help preserve and conserve for the conservation of these animals. Like, what? At first I didn't know what they were talking about, so I really looked into this, and apparently, like, if someone in their herd, like, someone in a certain pride or a certain herd is sick, or, like, let's say a male is, like, attacking another male, all the other males in that pride, they would kill that sick, male or female, or they would kill that male that's over-aggressive and killing the other giraffes or whatever. Like I said earlier, that's very, very specific. That doesn't happen every month. That doesn't happen all the time. You can't make that argument every time you go out and go trophy hunting, You can't say, oh yeah, like, after you say, oh, this one was sick every single time, or this one was overly aggressive every single time, that's where it gets untrustworthy. That's where this line is. In this whole activity, or as the hunters call it, this whole line in their sport. that's controversial. Like I said, the hunter's argument is what I was just talking about. Steph Knight mentions that this can actually hurt a population or a pride of species rather than conserve. So going on a little bit of what I just said to combat this argument, one of the hunter's arguments, that this can actually hurt a certain population. And a lot of the time, trophy hunters will go for males. They'll go for the really big, beautiful males. The males are the ones that usually have the colors, often in big game hunting. So, of course, those are the ones the hunters are going to want to go for. You know, that's the ones they're going to want plaqued up on their walls at home, are the really beautiful, unique ones, which is, you know, the sad part of all this. The males actually are the leaders of the pride or the leader of their group, depending on which species. But the males, since they're the leaders, they prove a sort of guidance to that certain pride or species. So that whole pride can die off, depending on, you know, what makes up the pride. If there's babies, if there's moms, that whole pride can die off because they don't have that leadership and they don't have that, you know, someone to point them in the right direction on how to eat, where to go, where it's safe. So technically, like Steph Knight mentioned, it actually can hurt that pride instead of conserving, like these trophy hunters have been saying as one of their arguments. So you know, that can even go on as far as if you wipe out, you know, a pride, that impacts that whole ecosystem, you know, in that savanna or forest or whatever. That impacts that entire ecosystem there that has already been established. So then you have, you know, other prides or other, you know, groups going, you know, dying out and etc. because of just, you know, some, you know, group of people went out there and trophy hunted a couple males. So it can definitely have an impactful effect. Another thing I would like to talk about, which it's similar to trophy hunting, is big game ranches. A way this kind of like hits home for us, there's one called Ox Ranch, and it's one of the biggest in Texas. It's only 3 hours away from here. It's in Uvalde, actually. I was looking at this report or this article that his name is Manny Fernandez. He went out there for a couple days, you know, talked to the manager, the hunter, the, you know, hunting guides, all that stuff, the workers that work there on that Ox Ranch in Uvalde. And the problem with this is there's not really a gain for humans or the animals in this situation. You know, these ranches, it's what really also breaks my heart as well, because these ranges are not just an animal shooting range, but yet they are not also a zoo. They're like somewhere in between, I want to say. Manny Fernandez, he wrote for this article for New York Times. He's a columnist for New York Times. He wrote, "These hunting guides and so on are walking a very thin, controversial line between caring for thousands of rare and or endangered animals, but also helping execute them." So these people will have ranches like the one in Uvalde, and you can pay thousands and thousands of dollars to stay there, but also the thousands of dollars to, you know, execute these animals. And they're not in the wild even. They're just on a man-made ranch. So that's something that's really sad in my eyes. Activity done on game ranges, a lot of people call it canned hunting. According to BBC wildlife columnist Mark Cardwendine, he talks about how, you know, they just set out they just let loose these animals in a confined area, and then they let you shoot them. For some reason, I feel like that's even worse than going out and, hunting them on their own turf. So, like I said, this particular big game ranches is a very big problem. Like I said, they have no regulation. They have, no one going out there and checking up on the animals. This ox ranch just provides a glimpse into the future on what we can stop. This ranch is equal parts exotic game hunting. It's also hunting retreat. It's also an upscale outdoor adventure and a breeding or killing ground for exotic species. So this just shows the future of what other ranches are trying to do as well. It's just amazing that this one's literally 3 hours from home. They have zebras. They have giraffes. This is a picture from Ox Ranch right here. They have giraffes out there. Like, if that's Uvalde, Texas, they're not even supposed to be here. So that's another, I don't know, sad, but, something to be aware of. Doing this project, I also just want to bring awareness to people about this issue and topic. But another thing that I found really interesting in Manny Fernandez's article is that this ox ranch, or the ranch, it's called the Ox Ranch, but it needs no local, state, or federal permit for almost all of their exotic animals. Like, I don't even know how that's legal. I don't know why they aren't being regulated. I don't know. I just, that's the thing. That's why this is getting so out of hand. This is why this is happening so much. This is why all these hunters have these combating arguments, because it's just not being regulated. So I would just like, y'all to, what is your choice? What is your side in this? I'd be really interested to know what other people think. Like I said, I grew up in West Texas. I was around people that went hunting all the time. And in my story, that was the first time that I had really seen up front what, really exotic, hunting and big game hunting is, trophy hunting. I had really no clue that people are doing this for sport. People do this thing, I think it's called, I can't remember, I think it's called heads or something. But what they'll do, they'll go into each, species, and they will, try to shoot, the biggest or the male or the prettiest one out of each of those species. So they'll start from, deer, they'll go up all the way to, cheetahs and leopards, and then they'll keep going up to, rhinos, hippopotamus, and then they'll just keep going up and up and up until they reach, the lion is apparently, the head of all the species, so that's the one that a lot of people, get recognized in this gaming, or this big game hunting and trophy hunting, community, sorry. This is, they have their own communities. They all gather up together. They will go hunt. I don't really know. I don't think it's on a point scale, but, if someone brings in a lion, they're obviously going to be in good with the rest of the guys and people from their trophy hunting community. So I want to go on and say, you have a hand in change. Educate more people on this. Speak up if you believe it's wrong. Talk about it. Argue about it. It's okay to argue. Educational arguments is one of the best ways to learn more. So I'd like to have your hand in change. I have a linked petition right here. This is basically for stricter enforcements and regulations of these trophy hunting outings and safaris. I think that's the first step we can take, because it's very popular in some areas and different countries. So I think that is one step that we can at least go for this trophy hunting, but also banning big game ranches. This petition also voices to that, because I think these big game ranches, they're basically turning this sport, you know, into commission and into a, you know, dehumanized activity. So I really think that banning these big game ranches, or at least doing the same and starting with, you know, people going in, regulating and enforcing, you know, different laws need to be made to protect these animals. So here's a link to sign that petition. I think it's to 15,000. I think it's at 11,000, like almost 11,500 right now. This one particular was written by Rebecca something. I know her first name was Rebecca, but she actually lives in Africa, and she started this to like the president of Africa. So, I mean, we can definitely have, you know, if we want to start one for just Texas or just the United States, I think that would be cool as well. But that is all I have for you today. I hope you learned something. I hope you got some new facts and information from my PowerPoint presentation today. Thank you so much. And here are my citations.